This podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Bogosity. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's audibletrial.com/Bogosity. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the 11th of July 2016, the podcast that supports while it lifts and separates. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me again is Jakob Morris. Jacob, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back.
Let's dilapidate the news of the bogus. And apparently New Zealand has a serious problem. They are number 3 on the Index of Economic Freedom, the third freest economy in the world, with scores like 95% on property rights and 91.4% on business freedom. And apparently, this is creating a serious issue that the New Zealand town of Kaitangata is now having to deal with. They have too many jobs. They are big in the dairy processing and freezing works industries. That's more than enough to fill their economic needs, but right now there are around 1,000 vacant jobs and too much affordable housing for the residents to fill. And according to Mayor Brian Cadogan, quote, "We have got youth employment down to 2. Not 2%, just 2 unemployed young people." Kind of makes you wonder who they are. It's like, hey, get off your lazy butts. We got jobs to fill here.
Like, maybe it's the New Zealand version of Beavis and Butthead.
So he and the town's bank and lawyers and community services are launching a campaign to try and get workers in. They are offering housing and land packages, which cost 230,000 New Zealand dollars, which is about 165,000 US. So apparently really letting these things dirt cheap. Apparently this is really nice area and it's on the coast and everything, so
maybe I should look into getting it.
And from what I understand, the internet's actually pretty good there, too. They ran like a fiber optic cable from New Zealand to California, so. Local dairy farmer and third-generation native Evan Dick said, quote, "This is an old-fashioned community. We don't lock our houses. We let kids run free. We have jobs, we have houses, but we don't have people. We want to make this town vibrant again. We are waiting with open arms. It's gone nuts. A mother and her 2 children just flew in. I took them to their section, and the look on their face was magical. Is this all ours? I can already see positivity and vibrancy flowing through the town."
Sounds absolutely magical.
Now, if you want to take advantage of it, of course, you'll have to get by New Zealand's immigration laws, but the story links to this very interesting interactive website where you can explore all the options for going to New Zealand to live and work. But it's interesting once again to see the bleeding of socialists to the contrary, what the actual problems are with a free market, and wouldn't you much prefer those problems to the problems we have now?
I don't know, I like starving.
Eating fried rocks?
Oh yeah, it's a delicacy. A Venezuelan delicacy.
Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level.
Hey everybody, this is Dave of the Superplex Bros, and you're listening to the Bogosity Podcast. When you're done, why don't you head over to superplexbros.com. We have all kinds of editorials and reviews on video games and pro wrestling. We're also currently hosting a major project called the Superplex Pokemon League, and we're about to go into our 3rd season. We just had our actual draft, and we're going over all of the teams and their draft picks. So why don't you head on over there, check things out, and if you like, you can even check out the Superplex Brothers podcast, where Matt and I basically bullshit about video games, pro wrestling, or whatever the hell we want. Anyway, until next time, take care.
You know, every now and then people tell me I'm getting paranoid about the state. The thing is, after everything the state's been doing, I don't know what's left to be paranoid about. I mean, everything I could be paranoid about, they're already doing. So I guess I could be paranoid that they'll start punishing journalists who try to obtain public court records under the Open Secrets Act, but actually I can't because they're doing that too.
Oh, wow. That's Orwellian.
Oh, yeah. And so this happened to Mark Thomason, publisher of Fan and Focus, and They even went after his attorney, Russell Stuckey. They were arrested and charged with attempted identity fraud and actual identity fraud. And Thomason was also accused of making a false statement. And this was because he was trying to get public records relating to the local Superior Court. But that court's judge, Brenda Weaver, didn't like that, and she also chairs the State Judicial Qualifications Commission. So Weaver took the matter to the DA, and the DA indicted them. And Thomason was charged on June 24th with making a false statement in open records request in which he asked for copies of checks that might have been cashed illegally. Thomason and Stuckey were also charged with identity fraud and attempted identity fraud because they didn't get Weaver's approval before sending subpoenas to banks where Weaver and another judge had maintained accounts for office expenses to see if they'd been illegally cashing these checks.
Makes you wonder if they're hiding something.
Yeah. Well, Weaver said that Thomason was probably trying to steal banking information on the checks.
I mean, it's not looks like it's that hard to steal banking information.
Yeah. So Thomason said, quote, I was astounded, in disbelief that there were even any charges to be had. I take this as a punch at journalists across the nation that if we continue to do our jobs correctly, then we have to live in fear of being imprisoned. And right now, he and his attorney are out on $10,000 bond. Thomason reported to a pretrial center and told he might have to submit to a random drug test. And Judge Weaver and DA Allison Sosby say that the charges are justified, and Weaver said that she resented Thomason's attacks on her character. Quote, I don't react well when my honesty is questioned. It's clear this is a personal vendetta against me. I don't know how else to explain that.
Well, if you got nothing to hide.
Yeah, how do you explain it other than making sure that no one is above the law and even judges can be investigated of wrongdoing? So, according to Holly Manheimer, executive director of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation, quote, to the extent these criminal charges stem from the use of the Open Records Act undermines the entire purpose of the law. The Open Records Act is the vehicle by which citizens access governmental information. Retaliation for use of the Open Records Act will inhibit every citizen from using it and reel us back into the dark ages. Now, the main investigation, what started it all, was out of an incident in March 2015 where a separate judge who is no longer on the bench was apparently using racial slurs. And this was Judge Roger Bradley, who resigned earlier this year, but apparently he repeated the slur. They don't really give details, apparently because no one really knows what they are, because Thomason asked for the transcript after he was told about this, but the transcript only noted that Bradley and the assistant DA had used a slur. Apparently it didn't even say what the slur was. It wasn't recorded in the transcript, and it wasn't taken down each time it was used, so we don't know how many times it was said. The court reporter told him it was off the record, so he asked for the audio recordings, and his request was rejected. Now, in every single court, the audio recordings of just what people in the gallery would hear are public record. It doesn't matter if it's in the transcript or not, as long as those proceedings themselves are not sealed, in which case you wouldn't be able to get the transcript either. You can get the recording. So this was absolutely a violation, and so Thomason asked his lawyer Stuckey to file paperwork in the court to force stenographer Rhonda Stubblefield to release the recording, and Stubblefield responded by suing them for $1.6 million, accusing him of defaming her and saying that the transcript she produced may not be accurate, even though she acknowledged that it wasn't accurate, because it didn't say what the slur was or how many times it was said. And 2 months later, a judge closed Thomason's case, saying that Thomason hadn't produced evidence that the transcript was inaccurate, which shouldn't matter anyway because he should be able to access the audio recordings. So what happened was Stubblefield filed paperwork to recoup attorney's fees, and she was cut a check for almost $16,000 from Judge Bradley's operating account. So this is the question. Who paid that $16,000? Was it a personal check, or did it come from the taxpayers? Because if it came from the taxpayers, that's a pretty big scandal. And yet Weaver responded, quote, she was being accused of all this stuff. She was very distressed. She had done absolutely nothing wrong, except not turning over the audio recordings like the law requires her to. But, quote, she was tormented all these months and then had to pay attorney's fees. And the only reason she was sued was she was doing what the court policy was. Of course, she wasn't doing what the Open Secrets Act said.
New Zealand's starting to look really good.
So, Stuckey filed subpoenas for copies of checks, and one of those two accounts had Weaver's name on it, as well as the Appalachian Judicial Court. So that was why he was trying to get after these bank records to figure out what was going on there. And Thomason said, quote, I have absolutely no interest in further misappropriating any government monies. My sole goal was to show that legal fees were paid from a publicly funded account.
I guess we'll never know now.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so rare these days for a journalist to actually do proper journalism. It's sad to think they'll get punished for doing so.
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, once again, quis custodiet ipsos custodes? Who watches the watchman? In the U.S., the answer to that question is supposed to be the press.
But Shane, someone said something mean on the internet.
Yeah. But that's why we have the freedom of the press guarantee in the First Amendment, as well as the Open Secrets Act. But if judges can just make up charges against reporters who are just trying to uncover the truth, then the answer to the question of who watches the watchman will be no one.
But Shane, people don't like the new Ghostbusters. Clearly that's more important.
Or whatever's happening with Kim Kardashian or whoever. Hackers, terrorists, the NSA. But I repeat myself. Your online security is under attack, and the weakest point is your password. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass plugs into your browser and allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords anywhere on the web, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers and all your computers, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, membership info, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications and even mobile devices, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. I think by now we've all seen the data showing that the results of our educational system in this country are stagnant even as per-pupil spending continues to grow out of control. It's so bad that a lot of people are just taking their kids out of school and homeschooling them.
Well, privatizing the schools is just out of the question, right?
Right. But homeschooling, how can parents possibly do as good a job as teachers who have passed all the government requirements and been properly ordained as a steward of the minds of the next generation? Well, actually, we see that they are, as the Foundation for Economic Education points out. And they say, quote, Dr. Brian Ray of the National Home Education Research Institute released findings on how homeschool students matched up against other students on the SAT exam. The results in the table below show that homeschooled students are far outpacing their traditional school counterparts, particularly in the areas of reading and writing. And so it looks at average SAT scores. For all students, the average critical reading score is 497, but for homeschoolers, that's 567, 70 points higher. For mathematics, all students average to 513, homeschoolers average to 521, 8 points higher, and writing averages for all students to 487. For homeschoolers, that's 535, 48 points higher.
They may believe in creationism, but damn, those scores.
Most of them actually don't believe in creationism. That's a nice little myth about it.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, that's you can always cherry pick that. You can cherry pick that with homeschools and private schools and stuff like that, but you look at the overall trend.
Even if they do, they're going to figure it out eventually.
Yeah, it really is dying out and their numbers dwindle every year. So they talk about how there was a lot of reporting last year about how students are just bombing the SAT right and left.
Oh, Shane. The politically correct version, please.
Okay.
Bombing.
Yeah.
Terrorists.
So Bloomberg created a bunch of charts showing SAT trends going all the way back to 1972, and they show one of them. Bloomberg's title for this is Reading Incomprehension. So scores for the reading portion of the SAT started off at 530 and plummeted in the 70s.
Oh, those scores bombed.
And then by 1980, they were down to just over 500. and they've been kind of dwindling since then, and now they're at the 497. But remember, the average homeschoolers scored 567, so that's even higher than the 530 that they started out with in 1972.
Yeah, those kids really blew it up.
But of course, I mean, what's always the solution for this? Oh, we need to make the SAT test easier.
Yeah, that'll solve it.
Yeah, but as the article says, quote, if young homeschool students don't seem to be having any trouble with the exams and even seem to be achieving historically high scores, is it really a good idea to lower the SAT bar? Is it possible that traditional schools are failing to impart the well-rounded course of knowledge which their students need in order to keep up with the homeschooled ones?
Yeah, looking at the modern youth today, yes.
And really, I mean, it's just a matter, I think, of holding our educational system accountable instead of just throwing more money at it, and all that does is reward failure. Oh, things are doing worse, you need more money. Oh, well, gee, I'd like to be able to do that. It's like, hey, I'm doing worse, please give me more money. I'm not doing my job as well, pay me more.
Shane, you don't hate teachers, do you? Come on, our teachers, man.
Won't you think about the students?
They don't get paid enough.
Think about the children.
It'd be one thing if the children were getting paid. Would have made going to school worth it.
They're being paid with an education.
Hooray, I know about Moby Dick.
Now you can make Amazon purchases with Bitcoin by going to purse.bogosity.tv. That's P-U-R-S-E. Moreover, most purchases can be made at a discount. Save an average of 20% just by buying from Purse, or get even greater discounts by linking your Amazon wish list. Go to purse.bogosity.tv. Bogosity.tv is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.com. Just clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv, or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for Amazon's best deals, including the deal of the day and limited-time lightning deals on all sorts of great products. So next time you buy online, go to amazon.bogosity.tv. Okay, no clever opening for this one, it's just horrible, and I'll go ahead and warn you, if you click on the link in the show notes, you'll see a very graphic and disturbing image. Hannah Cohen is a 19-year-old suffering from a brain tumor. She's partly deaf, blind in one eye, paralyzed, and easily confused. She's physically and mentally disabled and relies on her mother. She and her family were headed back home to Chattanooga from St. Jude's Hospital, where they were getting another treatment for a brain tumor, just like they have for the last 17 years, when for some reason Hannah set off the metal detector at the airport security checkpoint. And her mother, Shirley Cohen, said, quote, they wanted to do further scanning. She was reluctant. She didn't understand what they were about to do. She was trying to get away from them, but in the next instant, one of them had her down on the ground and hit her head on the floor. There was blood everywhere. And through it all, Cohen was trying to tell them about her daughter's disabilities. They just kept her at a distance and weren't even listening to her. So she was actually arrested and booked and locked up in jail on the night she should have been celebrating her last treatment. And Cohen said, quote, here we were with nowhere to go, not even a toothbrush. Our bags had gone to Chattanooga. So authorities threw out the charges, but the family filed a lawsuit against the Memphis airport, the airport police, and the TSA. And, I mean, this picture that I warned you about, she's just beaten and bloodied. But what's really disturbing to me is the look on her face, and maybe it's just me, but I'm really reading her face as wearing one gigantic question. Why? I mean, I think it's clear she has no clue why this happened to her. Now, they are suing the airport in addition to the TSA. I don't really see the point in suing the airport because the TSA has kind of been imposed on them by the holy priests in the Department of Homeland Security. But on the other hand, we have seen stories of airports asserting their right to manage their own security and kicking the TSA agents out, so maybe a lawsuit would encourage them and other airports to do just that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But check out the TSA's response. They didn't have an official response to the lawsuit, but they did say, quote, passengers can call ahead of time to learn more about the screening process for their particular needs or medical situation. Yes, please, disabled people, call ahead to make sure we don't beat you to a bloody pulp.
Oh, that's one hell of an unofficial response.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, come up with something. Oh, here's this.
Saying a little more than I think they wanted to. But once again, I can't help thinking of the public outrage that would result if a private company had done this. So why do people keep giving their holy government a free pass?
I don't know. Public schools?
If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. And now it's time to de-automate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And once again, it's a general dishonor going to the news media as a whole for their fear-mongering, panic, and neo-Luddism over a sad tragedy, the first ever fatality in a self-driving car. So to learn what happened, let's go to one of the few examples where they properly reported on it, the Ocala Star-Banner, and their staff writer Cindy Swerko, quote, Tesla, maker of high-tech electric cars, announced Thursday that a Williston crash in May that resulted in the death of the driver was the first known fatality involving its autopilot self-driving technology. Tesla notified the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration of the crash, and the agency is now investigating, the company said on its website. And they quote the website post, What we know is that the vehicle was on a divided highway with autopilot engaged when a tractor-trailer drove across the highway perpendicular to the Model S. Neither autopilot nor the driver noticed the white side of the tractor. And the idea is that the white truck just kind of blended in with the bright day sky, and so neither one saw it. So the first thing to notice is this wasn't the fault of the Tesla or its driver. A truck pulled right out in front of them. I mean, any trooper responding to the scene would fault the truck driver.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen to me.
Yeah, I mean, it pulls right out in front of you. There's not much you can do. And the second is that the human driver didn't notice it either. This wasn't the case where a driverless car killed a guy where he could have survived on its own. The car did have a driver. The driver could have applied the brake, and he didn't.
But what do the other people say?
Well, I mean, they're just saying things like, oh, well, this means the driverless cars are horrible and we shouldn't have them and stuff like that. So the article gives us some more information on this. Again, from their website post, quote, the high ride height of the trailer, combined with its positioning across the road and the extremely rare circumstances of the impact, caused the Model S to pass under the trailer, with the bottom of the trailer impacting the windshield of the Model S. So it's a less funny version of, the Smokey and the Bandit thing where the cops duck, they go under the truck, they come back up, and it's a convertible. Except, of course, the guy wasn't so fortunate. But the article says, quote, had the car hit the front or rear of the trailer, even at high speed, its advanced crash safety system would likely have prevented serious injury, as it has in numerous other similar incidents, the company added. And Tesla also pointed out that this is the first fatality in over 130 million miles of travel when the autopilot was in use. They also mentioned that it's not the default in the cars and it has to be activated by the driver. When it's activated, the driver is warned that autopilot is still in beta, it's just an assist feature, and the driver still has to keep hands on the steering wheel and keep alert at all times. And Tesla said, quote, we do this to ensure that every time the feature is used, it is used as safely as possible. As more real-world miles accumulate and the software logic accounts for increasingly rare events, the probability of injury will keep decreasing. Autopilot is getting better all the time, but it is not perfect and still requires the driver to remain alert.
Yeah, I doubt this is going to stop the regulators from trying to fix the problem, though.
Yeah, but I mean, this just shows how little the news media and regulators can be relied on. This should make people feel better about autopilots in cars. I mean, one fatality in 130 million miles is far superior to human drivers, and look at how much information Tesla was able to get about this accident, what caused it, and how they can help prevent accidents like that in the future. Because, you can't upgrade humans until we get this transhumanism stuff going. You can't improve your reaction time that significantly. You can't be made to see infrared. You can't be equipped with LiDAR. You can't get firmware upgrades. And I mean, it's the same thing we've pointed out with secure software. You don't want the software that nobody's hacked. You want software that people have hacked and a company that's open about it and works hard to fix the problems. And that's what Tesla's doing here. They were open about it. They notified the NHTSA. They notified the public, and they're working on making it better.
Well, bad news sells.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. The media loves playing blame and shame. They always say if it bleeds, it leads. And they love getting people whipped up in an outrage. But in cases like this, it just results in perverse incentives that actually discourage what I just said from happening, which is why so many companies and politicians engage in cover-ups. I mean, they're just working against the best interests of the people here. And that's why the news media is this week's biggest Bogon emitter. History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's LibertyClassroom.com. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, LibertyClassroom.com teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects, and when you sign up, you get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code Bogosity in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit LibertyClassroom.com. And now let's revoke absolution from this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
And this week it goes to FBI Director James Comey, who took biggest Bogon emitter last year for his ignorant comments about encryption.
Oh, so we have a repeat offender.
Yep.
You think Cycle is actually going to be Idiot of the Year?
I don't know. We'll have to see.
He sets a pretty high bar.
The year's only half over.
Still.
And we got an election coming up, so.
Oh, yeah.
And this week he went off the deep end when he showed quite clearly that he cares nothing for the law, at least when it comes to his political cronies, in clearing Hillary Clinton of all wrongdoing while admitting that she did everything she's accused of. So according to a very credulous New York Times article, quote, Mr. Comey rebuked Mrs. Clinton as being extremely careless, now remember that phrase, extremely careless, in using a private email address and server. He raised questions about her judgment, contradicted statements she had made about her email practices, said it was possible that hostile foreign governments had gained access to her account, and declared that a person still employed by the government, Mrs. Clinton left the State Department in 2013, could have faced disciplinary action for doing what she did. To warrant a criminal charge, Mr. Comey said, there had to be evidence that Mrs. Clinton intentionally transmitted or willfully mishandled classified information.
Oh, so much evidence. Can't hold it all.
But this just isn't in any way true. Now, I've linked to the relevant law. It's 18 U.S.C. section 793F.
You know it's a law because of all the letters and numbers.
Yep. They love doing that. Quote, whoever being entrusted with or having lawful possession or control of any document, writing, codebook, signal book, sketch, photographic negative, blueprint, plan, map, model, instrument, appliance, note, or information relating to the national defense, 1, through gross negligence, remember that too, gross negligence, permits the same to be removed from its proper place of custody or delivered to anyone in violation of his trust, or to be lost, stolen, abstracted, or destroyed, or 2, having knowledge that the same has been illegally removed from its proper place of custody or delivered to anyone in violation of its trust or lost, stolen, abstracted, or destroyed, and fails to make prompt report of such loss, theft, abstraction, or destruction to his superior officer, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Okay, so the crime is one of gross negligence. Comey is letting Clinton off the hook because she didn't have criminal intent. But intent is not an element of negligence. You don't intend to be negligent.
Oh, watch me.
No, I mean, if you set out to do it, it's not negligence, it's willful misconduct. Negligence is failing to act. And I mean, the whole point of making this crime one of gross negligence was to ensure that officials take active steps to make sure the information is properly protected, and by Comey's own admission, that isn't even close to what happened here. The New York Times also said, quote, of 30,000 emails Mrs. Clinton handed over to the State Department, 110 contained information that was classified at the time she sent or received them. Of those, Mr. Comey said, a very small number bore markings that identified them as classified.
Well, you see, she couldn't read. Apparently, that's her excuse.
But read that paragraph again. There's nothing in there about whether or not the information has officially been deemed classified. Just information relating to the national defense. So back to the article, quote, in saying that it was possible that hostile foreign governments had gained access to Mrs. Clinton's personal account, Mr. Comey noted that she used her mobile device extensively while traveling outside the United States, including trips in the territory of sophisticated adversaries. But that possibility is all that's required by Section 703, paragraph F.
I wonder what kind of mobile device it is. Maybe a flip phone?
I think that was a question, is what was it? Was it her own personal iPhone, or was it one she was given by the State Department, or what?
I mean, does she even know what an iPhone is?
Oh yeah, she's an iPhone user.
Okay, she seems really ignorant. I don't think she knows how technology works.
Well, Apple caters to the ignorant, you know.
Oh yeah, that's right, Mac.
And by the way, this isn't the only statute that could have gotten her in trouble. In fact, it's not at all unusual for the government to prosecute such negligence under the Espionage Act. That's exactly what she wants to have done to Edward Snowden. But I guess if Snowden had just put his trove of documents on a private email server, he would have been okay. In fact, as Glenn Greenwald wrote in The Intercept, Washington has actually been obsessed with punishing these very same secrecy violations, except in the case of Hillary Clinton. So Greenwald writes, quote, the Obama administration has prosecuted more leakers under the 1917 Espionage Act than all prior administrations combined. Secrecy in D.C. is so revered that even the most banal documents are reflexively marked classified, making their disclosure or mishandling a felony. People who leak to media outlets for the selfless purpose of informing the public, Daniel Ellsberg, Tom Drake, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, face decades in prison. Those who leak for more ignoble and self-serving needs, such as enabling hagiography, Leon Panetta, David Petraeus, or ingratiating oneself to one's mistress, Petraeus, face career destruction, though they are usually spared if they are sufficiently important in D.C. For low-level, powerless nobodies in D.C., even the mere mishandling of classified information without any intent to leak, but merely to, say, work from home, has resulted in criminal prosecution, career destruction, and the permanent loss of security clearance. This extreme, unforgiving, unreasonable, excessive posture toward classified information came to an instant halt in Washington today, just in time to save Hillary Clinton's presidential aspirations.
Yay.
And he says, quote, this case does not exist in isolation. It exists in a political climate where secrecy is regarded as the highest end, where people have their lives destroyed for the most trivial, or worse, the most well-intentioned violations of secrecy laws, even in the absence of any evidence of harm or malignant intent. And these are injustices that Hillary Clinton and most of her stalwart Democratic followers have never once opposed, but rather enthusiastically cheered. In 2011, Army Private Chelsea Manning was charged with multiple felonies and faced decades in prison for leaking documents that she firmly believed the public had the right to see. Unlike the documents Clinton recklessly mishandled, none of those was top secret. Nonetheless, this is what then Secretary Clinton said in justifying her position. So now we're quoting Hillary, quote, "I think that in an age where so much information is flying through cyberspace, we all have to be aware of the fact that some information which is sensitive, which does affect the security of individuals and relationships, deserves to be protected, and we will continue to take necessary steps to do so."
You just want to encrypt our hard drives.
Yeah, see, the government needs to read your hard drive. So Greenwald says, quote, "What happened here is glaringly obvious. It is the tawdry byproduct of a criminal justice mentality in which those who wield the greatest political and economic power are virtually exempt from the rule of law even when they commit the most egregious crimes, while only those who are powerless and marginalized are harshly punished, often for the most trivial transgressions." And he closes out, quote, "The Obama-appointed FBI director gave a press conference showing that she recklessly handled top-secret information, engaged in conduct prohibited by law, and lied about it repeatedly to the public. But she won't be prosecuted or imprisoned for any of that, so Democrats are celebrating. But if there is to be anything positive that can come from this lowly affair, perhaps Democrats might start demanding the same reasonable leniency and prosecutorial restraint for everyone who isn't Hillary Clinton."
One can dream.
But all the information he points out belies Comey's claim that no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case based on this evidence. They would, they have, they do, and people are currently in prison for it.
Yeah, prosecutors can be dicks like that.
And Comey even admitted that in his statement, quote, "To be clear, this is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, a person who engaged in this activity would face no consequences. To the contrary, those individuals are often subject to security or administrative sanctions, but that is not what we are deciding now." I mean, they're just not even trying to hide it anymore.
No, it really does seem like we're living in this cyberpunk future with all these shady corporations and governments doing shit like this.
Yeah, and Comey says that Clinton knew or should have known that what she was doing was very risky to this national security information, and once again, that's all that's required to show gross negligence. So basically, she absolutely did do these things that the law said she absolutely cannot do, but, well, she didn't mean it. And here's something else to consider. Martha Stewart served time in federal prison for far less than what Hillary did. Comey basically confirmed that Hillary had deleted emails in the face of an investigation and lied about the contents of those emails. All they had on Martha Stewart was lying to FBI officials about things they couldn't even prove were lies. But I think it does show that there is class warfare going on, but it's not the poor versus the 1%, it's not black versus white, it's not women versus the patriarchy or anything like that. It's regular people versus the political class, and everything else is a distraction from that.
No kidding.
Like you said, the cyberpunk future.
I mean, I was betting on post-apocalypse myself.
So all of that makes James Comey this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this. It appears my work on this planet is complete. I must now return to my home on the planet Zarkon edition of the Bogosity podcast. Come join the discussion at forum.bogosity.tv and feel free to join in by sending a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or the QR codes in the thumbnail, or become a patron at patreon.bogosity.tv and get the podcast and YouTube videos early and without ads or promos. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Jacob Morris for joining me.
Thank you back.
Until next time, here's a quote from Desmond Tutu. "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
Want answers to creationist claims against evolution? Would you like to know more about evolution yourself, or even engage creationists more directly, with actual peer-reviewed sources to back you up? My book, How Evolution is Scientific, is designed to show the basics of evolutionary theory and how it is so well supported using the scientific method. It's impeccably sourced, with references to the actual scientific material, and is arranged using the creationists' own criteria of what is scientific. Using their own arguments against them, see how evolution is scientific, but creationism is not, based on observations, accurate predictions, logic, and evidence. Get answers to common creationist claims, and even a primer on abiogenesis, the start of all life. It's all in my book, How Evolution is Scientific, available at Amazon and on Kindle, EPUB, and PDF as well. Get How Evolution is Scientific and never be taken in by creationists again.